You gonna say Happy New Year to everyone? No? Hey, kia ora, Helen Brahms here, coming live from Escondido in California. And Zephy just wanted to pop in and say Happy New Year, although she's a little pissed off with me for today. You gonna say hi, Zeph? No? Okay, I'll put you down now. Good girl. It's been a whirlwind of a day. So, had to leave Zephy by herself for 4 hours today while I went and drove up to Temecula to go to the DMV to do my Real ID thing. She's actually sitting here, she's standing here with her head on the bench between my legs. Crazy dog is getting her scratches. That's what she wants, is scratches, but she just wants a lot of attention. Got in there, I had an appointment for 2:30, got there around 1:30, appointment at 2 o'clock, got in there at 1:30. Oh, and before I forget, thank you, Jason, and, oh, jeepers, completely, I've done a brain fart on your wife's name. Brittany. Oh, yes. Oh. The EBs, thank you for the shirt. I got to wear it today. I enjoyed it. Okay. Oh, yes, Brittany. Oh, jeepers, so sorry. So I got there at 1:30 for a 2 o'clock appointment, got in. Just after 2 o'clock, this guy comes up and offers me his seat because I'm standing over the side there. I'm so like, yep, no, we're fine, thank you. Turned out his name was Aaron, and he is a bartender at a big function tonight, so he had to make sure he was out of there by 4 o'clock, and he was a little concerned that he wouldn't be because he'd already been there for an he arrived just after me because his number, I was F70 and he was F73, so he arrived just after me. And so we got chatting and all of that, and it was just nice just to chat with somebody. Made the time go quicker. Then I got to go up, and when I had finished there to go to the camera to get my picture taken, I noticed he was up at the counter as well. And I was probably standing with the person all of 5 minutes, got the picture taken, went back, got my temporary driver's license, and they'll mail out my real ID in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Hopefully it's not any longer than that, since I hit the road at the end of January, beginning of February timeframe. So I need to make sure I get it before then. So got all that done. On the way home, I thought I'll grab groceries. There's a supermarket just the other side of the freeway from where we are. So when they grabbed groceries, came back, oh my gosh, I put the key in the door and this horrendous noise came from inside as somebody decided to tell me, you are finally home. I would tell you that she was crying before I even had the door closed when I left today. She was in her crate and she was crying before I had the door closed. I opened the door, and the second I opened the door, she just started crying. I was like, oh, jeepers, no. And so I came in. There's an old comforter that's over her crate. If you have a look at the pictures I posted earlier, you'll see that she actually had the front of the comforter pulled into the crate with her through the wires, and she ripped it open and some of the stuffing was out of it, and she obviously tried to dig underneath her bed because her bed was doubled over and she'd been laying on that, and then it was doubled up at the back, and it was a mess in there. So I got it all cleaned up, no accidents or anything like that, and put the cold stuffs away, like stuff for the freezer in the fridge, and then put a leash on her and we went for a walk. And she was very happy to go for her walk. But she's been very vocal whenever I've walked out of the room, like I've gone into the bathroom or into the bedroom. She's there telling me in no uncertain terms how unhappy she is with me about today. And she was already pissed off about yesterday being in a crate. So it's going to be an interesting next few days. And it's going to be interesting on Saturday to see if she'll even listen to me when we go to training on Saturday. But anyway, so I thought I would get on early today because I'm going to do a movie fest tonight. One of the movies I'm going to watch is Angel Has Fallen, which is part of the, oh, hello. It's a little head down here. Yeah, she's into anything and everything right now. I think she's just trying to annoy me because I annoyed her so much today with leaving her in her crate. So the last 30 minutes, I've been sitting down. I've just been going back through Facebook over the last 10 years going, what have I done this decade? You know, what's some of the fun stuff that we've done? Of course, there's been lots of emotions flowing through that time and everything else. But, you know, what's some of the milestones and defining moments and everything that we've done and some of the fun that we've had along the way? So I thought, you know, have you gone through and reviewed what you've done this year? And have you gone through and looked at what you've done in the last 10 years to see where you were 10 years ago to where you are today and the difference between, you know, the two places? So I went back and I did a quick thing to discover I've done a lot, a lot of traveling. I have done a lot of an awful lot of traveling over the last 10 years. So it's been interesting. So I started off in 2010. We moved from Virginia to California. So sold our house that we'd had for like 13 years, almost 13 years, and moved to California. We did a road trip cross country. We had Gus in the back of Brad's Yukon. My car got shipped. So animal got shipped out here, and actually arrived in like 48 hours. And we were told it was going to be like 5 days. We figured that's fine. It'll get there just before we do. We got a call at 2 days on the road to say the car's arrived. I'm like, what? Okay, whatever. Great road trip. I got to go back and find the blog for that road trip because there's lots of great stuff in there about things that we did along the, well, not much that we got to get to do with Gus being in the car and being hot as anything because it was the middle of summer. But we went through just about the only thing we didn't get on the road on the trip across was snow. We got the heat, we got rain, we got torrential downpour rain, we got hail. We did not get snow. That was the only thing. That was the only weather element. Oh, we got high winds. It was the only weather element missing on that trip. I'm thankful for that. That's fine. We had cold, we had hot. It was interesting. I also got laid off after I celebrated 10 years with Marriott International, working for them that year at the end of May, and then I got laid off a couple of months later, which was perfectly fine with me. I mean, I'm telling the recruiter, I'm telling her it was awesome when she told me I didn't get any of the jobs I applied for, and she goes, and when I said awesome, there was just this quiet from the other end of the dog here on my eyelashes, and she couldn't understand the fact that I was so happy and so positive about it because we'd already started our business 2 years prior, our travel business, and now I could now go full time in it and really get it going and moving in that. And it worked out perfectly because I finished with Marriott on the 30th of July 2010, and then 2 days later we boarded the Mariner of the Seas for a celebration cruise because we had 7 people out of 21 family members celebrating milestone birthdays that year. So it was a great family trip. We had an amazing time down in the Mexican Riviera. And I actually thought about this. When was I thinking about this? I came across something yesterday or the day before that reminded me of this particular cruise. And that was when we got to go. Brad had to walk off and not in pants. He had on his damp swim trunks because I had packed his pants the night before. It still cracks me up. I still remember it clear as a bell. He comes out of the shower. You know, I packed everything up the night before. I put my clothes in a safe spot. Packed everything up that was out for me to pack, put the suitcases out the door like you're supposed to, and then the next morning he comes out of the shower and he gets dressed, he has his underwear on, he has his socks on, he has his polo shirt on, and he's like, can you hand me my pants? And I looked around and I go, your pants? And I'm like, looking, I can't see any pants. And he goes, I said, where are your pants? And he goes, well, they're over there. And I go, there's no pants over here. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh shit, I probably packed them. So I suddenly realized, and the whole hilarity of the moment just struck me. So I get down on the floor and I'm like looking under the bed, trying not to laugh, looking under the couch. I'm looking everywhere that's down at floor level so that Brad couldn't see me laughing. And he's like, are you laughing? I'm like, no, I'm not laughing. And there's like tears coming down my face. And we realized that we had packed them, that they'd been packed. And I was like thinking, oh my gosh. And I thought, no, hang on. It's had to have happened before. All I got to do is just find a room steward, ask them what we do in this sort of situation. And it's probably going to be me having to go off the ship, get our bags, find them some pants, somehow get back on the ship and explain it to everybody. It's probably going to take me like an hour or two to get down there and back up again. You know, I'm just like thinking through all the logistics of this while I'm laughing. And Brad was not amused. Just well that way, he was not amused. And so then he goes into the bathroom and he actually had his swim trunks there from the night before. So he'd left his swim trunks out because he went and sat in the hot tub. So they weren't quite dry. They were a little damp, but he had something to wear off the ship and we didn't have to go say to the room steward, look, I packed my husband's clothes last night by mistake. So that for us, it was our second time we've been on a cruise ship. Our second only cruise. The first cruise had been in September the year before where we got to meet Tony, who I see is online. Hey, Tony, can't wait to see you guys in March. So it was only the second time. So after that, we had a rule that when it came to packing, we had a no-pack zone. And into that no-pack zone went everything we were going to carry off with us the next day, including the clothes we were going to wear. So that was our lesson from that one. We learned it the hard way. I have no idea how the crew even handles people having to go off to get clothes to bring back for those that whose clothes they've packed or whatever. We didn't have to find that out, thankfully. But then later that year, so that was in August, and then in November and December, over 5 weeks, I ended up doing 3 cruises. We did Celebrity Eclipse, Allure of the Seas, and Norwegian Epic. So we had a blast. And then 2011 came in, and I ended up doing 2 cruises that year, one in February on the Disney Wonder, which was part of their program for those that had been through their Disney College of Knowledge. It was the very first time they had done this type of a trip. They had us staying at Disneyland overnight. We were in not the Disneyland Hotel, not the Adventure one, the other one. There's the Pier. It's the beachy themed one at Disneyland, and they took us in through the Wilderness Lodge, whatever the wilderness looking one is. So we did tours of the 3 hotels, through their rooms, their suites, and all that sort of thing. Then they took us through the one that looks like the Wilderness Lodge, the big log cabin there at Disneyland, through California Adventure, and they basically had us in a pack all the way so we could watch the World of Color exhibition. It turned out later on when we got back to our room, we could have actually seen it from there and had a better view. And we were in the VIP area. And then we're back out of the park again. And that was our trip in and out of Disneyland that day. And then the next day they put us on the cruise ship and took us on a ship tour, and then we got to stay there. We did have to do class every morning at 7 o'clock, and the instructor absolutely amazed us. I mean, she was mid-60s. She would close down Waves every night, and Waves in the evening became the adult lounge, so no kids allowed in there. And she would close that down every evening, dancing until like 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and she would be bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and ready to go at 7 a.m. when we walked in the door. She was just amazing. It was a phenomenal trip. It was really cool. And then that year, Brad graduated from the University of Phoenix with honors. He finally had his 4-year degree. He had actually kind of completed it years ago when he was in college. He had maxed out all his computer science classes, and he only had 2 math classes to do, but he never went back and did them. So then while he was going through his first round of cancer, he actually started up with the University of Phoenix and ended up doing a 4-year degree in computer information systems, I think it was. I was trying to remember what it was, but I think that's what it was. And he ended up graduating with honors, so I got to go see him walk, which was really, so proud of him for doing that, especially considering everything he'd gone through to get to that point as well. 2011 was also an incredible year because I got to meet somebody who was a very, very dear friend and mentor of mine. I got to meet Casey that year. I met him, and I actually found the post. I found the post because we always wondered when it was we actually met, and it was on the 23rd of July. So we met at a functional at an advanced LinkedIn class on the 23rd of July. Then on the 2 days later, on the 25th of July, we were at a BNI regional thing, and he was there as well, as being introduced as a director consultant for the San Fernando Valley BNI group. And then the next day on the 23rd, 25th, 26th, I was at the Wedding Party Professionals group. We were at Duke's in Malibu having our monthly lunch there, and we had a guest speaker who happened to be Casey. So I got to meet this guy 3 times in 4 days. Do you think I'm supposed to know him? Yes. So Casey, if you are watching this, or when you watch it on replay, if you're not watching right now, that is when we met, the 23rd of July, 2011. So yeah, it was 3 times in 4 days. How can you not want to know somebody when you meet them that often in that short amount of time? So amazing guy, does amazing things. He actually runs the mastermind group that I belong to, and you'll hear more about that in a minute. 2012, we started looking for different places to live. Mind you, we've been kind of hunting for places to live because we're living with Brad's mum at the time when we moved to LA, and we got to the point where sort of like, we've got to find somewhere of our own to live. It wasn't till later that year that we found somewhere, and we ended up moving in January or February of 2013. We did 3 cruises that year. We did Freedom of the Seas, which saw Brad in hospital immediately after the cruise. Tony, you might remember that one when I gave Tony and Brad a call and said, Brad has to go to an ER. Which one do I go to in Orlando? Because we had just gotten off Freedom of the Seas. He had some digestive infection, and it was required antibiotics, and they didn't carry those on board the Freedom of the Seas. So he was basically confined to his cabin for the remainder of the 7-night cruise we were on, and that's when we decided we do not want to stay inside cabins anymore. No fresh air. He didn't have the norovirus. He had some infection that required antibiotics and all that sort of stuff. So gave Tony and Brett a call. They told us which hospital to go to, which ER to go to. So we went there, and we were actually staying in Orlando for a week after the cruise. So we finally got to bring Brad home, went out for dinner with Tony and Brett, and had an awesome evening catching up with those guys. And if you don't know Tony and Brett, they are we call them our cruise planners' sons. We met them on a cruise, our very first cruise in 2009 when we were in Alaska on the Norwegian Star. And we got talking about host agencies or something, and then a while later they called us up and said, hey, what was the name of the host agency again? We're thinking of joining. And they ended up joining Cruise Planners, and it's been, as they say, the rest is history. And so they're our CP sons, and they've always called us their CP mum and dad, and we've got a very special place for Tony and Brett. So yes, we got to see them that week, and and when Brad finally got out of hospital, we went out and had dinner with them, so it was kind of cool. Then we got to do Celebrity Reflection that year, and also Liberty of the Seas as well. So we had a lot of traveling that year, because all of that, the Freedom Celebrity, Freedom was in, I think it was September. Celebrity Reflection was end of October, beginning of November, and then Liberty was in December, because we boarded on my birthday on that one. Then in 2013, we moved to Rancho Bernardo in San Diego. I attended my very first MLB game. It was, San Diego Padres were hosting Washington Nationals, and the Padres got 17 home runs, and I thought that was pretty good. And then I got told by Hank Ulof, who was a big baseball fan, that is not typical. 17 runs is not typical, and I'm like, oh, okay. But then when I went to see my first NFL game, which was the Redskins against Carolina Panthers, the Redskins won by a huge margin as well. I got told then too that wasn't normal. It's like, oh, okay. So I still have hockey and basketball. So, and I've always wanted to see the pro sports. So I've done football, I've done baseball. I just need to add in basketball and hockey into that one. So we'll get there. I also flew down to New Zealand that year at the end of March, beginning of April, for 10 days. I went by myself because I was only going for 10 days. And it was my brother, Craig, he got married then, and I was the MC for his wedding. And he was kind of a little nervous about older sister being his MC, because I kept threatening him with stories I was going to tell at his wedding. And Mum said to me, when I got there, she said, could you just lay off a little bit? She said, he's getting really, really, really nervous. So I didn't tell any stories, but it was nice to tease him a little bit. Love you too, Tony. We'll see you guys in March. Probably see you online before then. Let's see, what else have I got here that I did? So we did that, flew down there for their wedding. Had a great 10 days then. Then in August, we got to celebrate Brad's oldest son's wedding to Nadia, and that was awesome. Great event. It was awesome. I was here in San Diego. It was beautiful. It was an awesome day. Loved it. Got to sail the Royal Princess that time and got to meet Gavin MacLeod. And those who don't know Gavin MacLeod, go back, watch The Love Boat. He was the Captain Stubbing, and he was releasing his book at the time. So we got to stand in line, wait to meet him, have our photos taken with him, and have him sign copies of his book for us. And I sent one copy to Mum and Dad for Christmas. So one was made out to them and one was for me. We also did our very first Carnival cruise that time. We did the Carnival Inspiration, which I've now been on three times now. Three times. Yes, 3 times. And got to sail on Celebrity Reflection again, and that was a New Year's cruise. That was an interesting experience. I mean, it was a lot of fun, but me being an outgoing introvert, I still need my space, and that ship was packed. There were a lot more kids than I ever remember there being on a celebrity ship. It was a great experience. I'm glad I did it. I know we were out on the pool deck. Actually, we were one deck up. We were overlooking the pool area, and they had nobody was allowed to swim in the pool. They had this bridge piece across where they had 2013 up there in ice, carved in ice, these big ice things, and they had the 4 sitting behind the 3 covered over at the time. They had live music going. People were down there dancing. Brad and I found a spot on the deck above so we could look down at this, and we just claimed our chairs and claimed our spot, and that was it. We were staying there. We were not moving. A lot of huge party atmosphere. It was great. And then as they were counting down, that you could see the 3 of the ice start slowly moving towards the pool on the bridge that they had across the pool that it was on, and it just slowly starts moving. And as soon as they counted down to 1, the cloth got ripped off, the 3 fell in, and the 4 was exposed. So you now had 2014 on there. And with that, not only do we hear the splash of the 3 going in the water, there was a splash further down, and these this family that was all in, the guys were in the tuxedos, women's in these gorgeous, because it was also a formal night, so everybody's in formal gear on the ship. But there was these 2 guys in tuxedos and 2 women in full evening gowns jumping into the pool, and I'm just like, that's awesome. It was so much fun, and it just kept carrying, and it just went on and on. And I don't even know what time it ended, because at that point I was like zonked. I'm like, I'm done. I need to get out of here. I need to get away from the people. But that was a great cruise on that one. In 2014, Casey started his mastermind group, the Platinum Inner Circle, and joined that, and it's been a blast being in that group. They've seen me through so many challenges, especially with Brad's health and his passing and everything else, that I just have so much love and respect for everybody in that group. And seeing the changes that some of the people have gone through in that group has just been phenomenal. Mum and Dad came over that year and spent the month of May with us, and we did what we called the big trip. So we went up to LA. We passed it was when all those big bushfires were on and everything else in Southern California. And as we're going along on the 5, we're like stuck in bumper to bumper traffic. We can see smoke up ahead of where the inspection station is on the 5. And we get up there in this, not an 18-wheeler, but like the next size down, where the cab and the truck portion is all one of the same piece, had been on fire, and the fire had jumped across the freeway, and you could see it burning down by the rail tracks. You could see the train stop further up. It had gone up the hill a little bit as well, and we're like, great. But we did make it up to LA, and we did get to go see the big plane that went up into space, because the space shuttle had arrived. So we went up and saw that. And then we stayed in LA for a few days, kept my sister-in-law company while my brother-in-law had surgery, and then we headed to Palm Springs, where we went up in the big boxes up the mountain. That was the tram cars, in case you're not keeping track. Then we went from there to Sedona to see the big red rocks. Then we headed from Sedona to where did we go stay next? Winslow. We went and saw the big hole in the ground where the meteor crashed. Then we went to where the big chunk of concrete was blocking the water at the Hoover Dam. And then we saw the big lights in Vegas. And then we headed back to San Diego. And we were gone on the road for like 2 weeks, I think it was, that we were gone on that trip. It was awesome. We had a great time. We had a blast. I always have a blast when we travel with my parents. And 2014 is another big year. This is when this guy became my little mascot. So this is Casey Kiwi, for those of you who don't notice. He did get named after my friend Casey, because he's the one that said I had to have something that represented who I was. So he wanted to call it Just. I said, Just is not a name for a Kiwi. He wanted Just Kiwi. I said, no, Just is not a name. And one of the people in our group suggested Casey, since he's the one that suggested I get a mascot. So this is Casey Kiwi. He's been on a lot of miles with me. And it was November of 2014 we found out Brad's cancer was back. So 2015 saw us with lots of medical challenges, but February was a very, very happy month, because we welcomed Damak, our first grandchild, to Brandon and Nadia's first baby arrived, and a little heartbreaker, that one. Still is. He's going to be 5 next year. It's like, wow, we're halfway through the decade. And, he's 5. He's going to be 5. Wow. I took a 1-week trip down. I went with they were in New Zealand vacations at the time, but they took 8 travel professionals with them, and we went down and we did 3 nights in the Cook Islands and 3 nights in New Zealand. And there was a time there when we were in Rotorua where we had some off time, and everybody went down to the Polynesian baths, which I have been to so many times. I was just like, yeah, no. And my mum and dad we'd actually arranged for them to come meet us there as well, and so they were there when the bus arrived. When we arrived on the bus, and so we got to catch up with my mum and dad for a couple hours. They always think it was like an hour. It was like 3 hours. So we had a good time. We also moved to Solana Beach in end of January, beginning of February of that year as well, which is where we stayed until May of this year, April of this year. 2016 was Brad's final trip final trip by air that he ever took. We flew back to Virginia for Chris and Ash's wedding. Chris is Brad's middle son. Flew back for their wedding in June. Usually I'm really good with dates. Had a great time at their wedding, and that we even caught up with Karen, who is her husband Lance and Brad used to work together. And if you ever remember the story about Brad and the smuggling pizzas into Bosnia dream thing, Lance is one of the guys that came in and saw him that later that day, and him and Stephen, and there was Lance, Steve, and Brad, and the three of them together plotted in detail exactly how they were going to smuggle pizzas into Bosnia in an 18-wheeler. This was from Brad's first day in hospital back in 2008. They had me in stitches on the floor, I tell you, for 30 minutes. And trust me, the detail that these three software engineers went into, it was so well planned, I would have sworn they would have been able to do it. It was just phenomenal. It was amazing. But unfortunately, he had passed away that February. Yes, he passed away that February from cancer. So we got to catch up with Karen, his wife, and had a great time with her until we had to go out to the bed and breakfast for the wedding. So it was good. Also got to cruise, did a massive group cruise that year. We had over 100 people on the group. It was awesome. A lot of great friendships made out of that one. 2017 became a very defining year for me. So we had the big group cruise from the year before, sailed again. We had the marathon hospital stay in there. I mean, we'd had several little hospital stays in between. And then June 23rd saw Brad go into hospital for 87 days. He finally came home on September the 19th and then passed on September the 24th. And while he was in hospital, we had to let Gus go on the 6th. And on the 7th, Chris and Ash arrived from Virginia. They had just driven across North America. So they'd been up into the top part of America and Canada in this big road trip. I think they did like 3 or 4 weeks to come across, and they arrived with their dog Mojo the day after Gus passed. So they were actually with us in the house when Brad passed. And then my parents arrived shortly after Brad passed, because I called them the morning that he passed to let them know that he was gone. They were actually planning on flying out the following Sunday. And they stayed for the whole month of October and helped me get a lot of things sorted out and all that sort of stuff. I just know that when they got there, my garage was absolutely jam-packed full of stuff. And when they left, I could get the car in there. So they did really, really good at pushing me to get stuff done, because I was just wanting to curl up and shut myself off from everybody. But they were good at getting me out and keeping me motivated. And Mum basically took over the kitchen, so I didn't have to worry about that. She took over my washing machine and dryer as well, so I didn't have to worry about laundry or anything. And she was very good at breaking down boxes and literally packing the trash cans. We had 3 trash cans. We had 1 recycle and 2 regular garbage tins, and those things went out full every week that they were there. My mum and dad did a phenomenal job that month that they were there, and I am forever grateful for them for doing that. And then they were gone for a week, and then my friend Christy, who is in, I want to say South Carolina, but I think I got the wrong place. Might be Georgia. It's one of those states there. She came out for a week, and she spent a week getting all of my accounting books up to date with everything, because I just had the statements all stacking there and they hadn't been balanced, reconciled or anything. So she did all of that for me. And very grateful to her for being there that week and doing that as well. So yeah, a very defining year. 2018 was a little bit fuzzy in some places, but I did go on a very first cruise by myself, which happened to be my 16th cruise, if you're keeping tally. I did that in May, and it was very difficult emotionally in a lot of places, especially in that very first day when you're doing muster drill and you're standing there in this room full of strangers and everybody's standing as couples. And then you're standing there in the middle of all these couples and you suddenly realize that this is your life now. And all you want to do is curl up on the floor and become a pile of goo. But the next 40 minutes were the longest 40 minutes of my life, is all I will say. I did manage to get back to my room before the tears actually started falling. But that was very cleansing. And so Casey Kiwi became whenever you saw me on the ship, wherever you saw me on the ship, I was carrying Casey Kiwi with me. I literally was like, tuck him under the arm and off would go. and people got to, I think I made more friends with the crew than I did with anybody else on the ship. Actually met a guy on the first night, him and his wife were there, they're from New Zealand, and he was born and raised in this little town where I spent my entire teenage years. It was the longest place in New Zealand I ever lived, and I only went to 2 schools there. I finished off my middle school there and my high school there, and he was from that same town. He'd actually left 3 years before we moved there, but he still knew all the people I knew. Like I said, well, my dad was good friends with Albert Sofa, was the local policeman. He goes, oh, Albert and I went to school together. And I said, my mum worked for this doctor and this, and he was telling me about all the office shenanigans that were going on there at the doctor's surgery where my mum used to work. And so it was kind of interesting to hear it from somebody who's about the same generation as my mum, as my mum and dad. And so it was kind of fun and interesting. 3 days before the first anniversary of Brad's passing, our second grandson, Bo, made an appearance. So that was an exciting time in September of last year. And then in December, I got to go on Carnival Horizon, got to board it on my birthday, so I had a birthday cruise again. And this one was a thank you from Carnival, because I'd been on their Travel Partners Advisory Committee for the last 2 years. And so they took everybody who'd been on that committee on the cruise as a thank you. Beautiful ship. I mean, that's unlike any other Carnival ships. That was beautiful. And now we've got Carnival Panorama in Long Beach, which is a sister ship there to the Horizon. So it's sort of like, yay. And while I was on that cruise, I decided I was flying home to New Zealand at the last minute for Christmas. I hadn't been home for Christmas for 12 years, but there was just something inside me niggling, telling me, go home for Christmas, go home for Christmas. So I thought, okay. So I called my friend, contacted the person I work with the vendor that I use a lot for New Zealand, and said, I know it's probably going to cost me an arm and a leg. And she came back with an amazing price. And I said, if there's any way you can get me a window seat on all the international flights, I would greatly appreciate it. Well, not only did they get me an amazing rate, which was sort of like unheard of, all my flights were window seats, all of them. And when I got on the plane, when I got on Fiji Airways and got into my seat, the plane was full. There was not an empty seat anywhere. And what was really cool was that we were sitting there, I was sitting there on the plane, there was this lady sitting next to me, and she basically put the chair back as soon as we got up flying and all that, and she spoke English kind of well. She's from Mexico, I found out later on. But then as we're getting ready to come into Auckland, and they'd handed out the forms, she asked me to help her with the forms because she could speak English okay, but she couldn't read it. So I'm reading the form and I'm telling her what needs to go where. And I said, now this is, you need to put down your birth date. And so she writes down her birth date. She's 2 days older than me. She was the 7th of December, 66, and I was 9th of December, so she was 2 days older. And I looked at her birthday and I went, is that your birthday? And she shows me a passport. Yep, and I showed her mine. She's like, so she was 2 days older than me. So that was kind of cool. But got home, surprised my brother, because I hadn't seen him since his wedding in 2013. So surprised his brother and his wife was like, for like a full 5 minutes, and before she could get her mouth working, and then all that would come out would be, oh. It was awesome. There were a lot of tears that day. It was a good day. And it was March of last year, I decided I was going to move into an RV. That was the other thing. I was going to sell everything and move into an RV. So this year has been an interesting year. So in April of this year, I moved out of the house that we've been renting for the last 4 years, put a whole bunch of stuff in storage, even though I got rid of a whole bunch of stuff, and I'd either sold it or given it away, and there was still a whole bunch that got stored. So we got all that into storage, and on the 4th of May, I found Sparkles and purchased her and took delivery of her on the 5th of May, and have been living in her ever since. We've done over 5,000 miles so far, and 3,227 of them were done in August with my parents. But first I went home in July for my brother's 50th birthday, and we spent 3.5 weeks down there. We went on a road trip, got to catch up with the family that I hadn't got to catch up with when I was down there in December, because I was only down there for a short time. And it was a real last minute trip. Because we're talking, I got off the ship, got home on the Sunday and flew on the Wednesday. That's how last minute it was. So we arranged to do all this visit family along the way as I was down there in July. So we I did a few plans that way. Got to catch up with some people I hadn't seen for a while, which was awesome, which was most of my family. Hadn't seen most of them since Craig's wedding. But it was good to catch up with family and just be with family. It was awesome. So I got to do that in July. And then and then I came home for a week, got Sparkles out of storage, got her ready, and then Mum and Dad showed up the last week of July, and we started our road trip on the 1st of August. And 1st of August is also a very important day too, because that's the day that I started Helen's Great Adventures, and we're now on day 153. I have not missed a day since the 1st of August. Yeah, so we went to, where did we go? We went to Vegas first. That was our first stop. Then we went from there to Moab, Utah. Went to Canyonlands there, incredible place. Rented a car, to drive for the day that we were there. Then from there we went to Salt Lake City for a night, and we arrived early enough that we were able to catch the public transport down to Temple Square and do a tour around the temple, the Mormon temple that's there. That was really interesting. Then the next day we went up to Plymouth in Washington, which is just the other side of the Columbia, just across the Columbia River. And there was a great campground there that was done by the Corps of Army Engineers. Beautiful campground, gorgeous campground, great big sites. It was awesome. Then from there we went to north of Seattle. That was a horrendous drive because we ended up going up this mountain and down the other side and going literally the whole way down. The roads were horrible. Zeph is just like, what are you doing? Hi, Zeph. Hello, sweetie girl. She just popped up to say hi. Let's see if I can angle this better. Betsy, you want to say hi? Oh, where'd you go? Come here. There she is. You say hi. Crazy dog. She was down on the floor playing. And we stayed up there for a couple of nights. Then we went up to Vancouver, British Columbia, and had a great time up there. We did a day trip to Victoria. We even went down to downtown Vancouver. We did the sea walk along there. We just had a great time just going around looking at things and exploring and all that sort of stuff. Had lots of ice cream. Yeah, and cream and apple pie and cherry pie and this whole road trip. Mum kind of took over getting the dinners ready in the evening, and there was always dessert. It was awesome. I love my desserts. Then from British Columbia, let's see, we did a day in Victoria, did a day trip on that. Then we went from there down to Portland, Oregon for a couple of nights. And that's where my steps stopped working. Like they wouldn't come out anymore. So we ended up having to, Dad would get down first, put the step stool out there for us and help us down. And then he'd be the last one to get back in as well, because he'd put the step stool inside and then he'd get up. And then from Portland, Oregon, we went to Phoenix, Oregon, which is just out of Medford, and spent a night there. Then we went to Redding, California. We were there for 2 nights. It was an interesting campground. It was almost like a great big asphalt parking lot. But we did walk from the campground down to the Sundial Bridge and spent time walking across that, looking at it and walking back again. It was about a mile down the road. We were told that they had bus stops out front, but it turned out the buses had stopped running, but nobody told us that. So we ended up walking. Then from Redding, we went to Rancho Ozo, which is somewhere out the back of Santa Barbara. We stopped off in Solvang, so we could go there and have the little apple dumpling, round apple pancake things. And the day we were there, they had all these beautiful classic cars there, and there was their Wheels and Windmills was their day festival. That it was only that one day as well. So we saw that, went to Rancho Ozo that night. That's the only place we didn't have internet connection, but I still did my Facebook Live. I just recorded it and then uploaded it as soon as we had internet connection the next day. So that still counts because I did record it live at the correct time. But that was a great camp. I mean, it's in the middle of nowhere. Like my dad says, you know where the back of beyond is? We were beyond the back of beyond. And then we went from there back down here to San Diego to this campground. And it was 3,227 miles in 27 days. So yeah, it was a lot of driving. Then they went back home. I spent the month of September between here and Menifee. And then in October, I headed over to Arizona for 6 weeks. I was only meant to go for 4, but I ended up staying 6. Came back and I was in Temecula. I'd been there not even a week. I hadn't even been back from that trip for not even a week. I've been back. See, I got in on the Thursday, and then the Saturday, which was November the 16th, I met Zephy, and that's when I adopted Zephy. And that's been my year in review, and we've been having a blast and still ironing out the separation anxiety thing. So that's my year in a review, my decade in a review. Tonight, we're just going to probably end up going for another walk because it looks like she wants to go back out again. So we're going to go for another walk, and then we're going to come back, and we're just going to kick back, relax, put our feet up, watch a couple of movies. We've got Angel Has Fallen to watch, which is part of the, I'm calling it the Fallen trilogy, because you've got Olympus Has Fallen, which is when the White House got overtaken by terrorists. Then there was London Has Fallen, where all the world leaders came together for the British Prime Minister's funeral, and there was a terrorist attack there. And now we've got Angel Has Fallen, which is where Gerald Butler's character gets framed. So I understand. I haven't seen the movie, so I can't tell you. But I'm trying to figure out what else to watch. So what sort of movies do you like to watch on New Year's Eve to see in the new year? That's a good question for you. Anyway, we want to wish you, from Casey Kiwi, myself, and Zephy. Nope, we're not going to come up. We're just going to whine. High five. Oh, good girl. She gives high fives now. So from the three of us here in Sparkles, we would like to wish everybody a super fantastic sparkling new year. May 2020 be your year that is full of love, laughter, and abundantly full of blessings. So have a super fantastic sparkling new year. We will catch you guys next year. In other words, tomorrow. Yeah. So we'll catch you guys tomorrow or next year, whichever way you want to look at it. Anyway, we're off to go for a walk, celebrate the new year by watching movies, snacking. I did at the market get a piece of, because Vons carries Cheesecake Factory cheesecakes, and they have just the wedges. So I got a wedge of a chocolate brownie cheesecake. That's my thing to see in the new year with. So how are you seeing the new year? Let me know how you're seeing it. And I know most of the world is already in the new year now, so happy new year to everybody in New Zealand, Australia, and everywhere else around the world, as you guys have already celebrated it, where it's just hitting us here in the States. Let's see, it's 8 o'clock now, 11 o'clock Eastern time, so another hour before New York and all of them start catching up with everybody else, before the US starts the catch-up process. So I hope you all had a fantastic New Year's. I'm seeing people from other countries popping on here, so it's great that you guys have made it to the new year. And the new year looks like it's sound, so we're good going in. Excellent. Have a great one. Catch you guys tomorrow. Hei konera.